Oh, hello, and welcome to Adente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The U stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories. Most creepy, most pasta, and most Jeff the Killer. For tonight, for Jeffuary 2024, we have Nina the Killer. So we are diving into the extended family of Jeff the Killer stories, or the Jeff the Killer adjacent stories.
Because we love the mainline stories so much.
Hey, you liked some of the rewrites.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So we're gonna dive into Nina the Killer, who is like the maybe not the original, but one of the original like super fangirl like killers of Jeff the Killer. Certainly based on the Google image showing, it has like the like a metric shit ton of fan art for Nina. So
and more than Jeff, probably.
It's very possible. So Nina the Killer was written by Alegotic-Twelve. We're covering it through Fearfic.Fandom.com/wiki, which is my new favorite fan wiki site.
Is it?
I mean, it's a new one, so and it has a lot of material. So
okay.
Specifically for Jeffuaries.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for your question. I hate it.
But you can also check out Nina the Killer, this version of Nina the Killer, by Alegotic-Twelve on her DeviantArt account and on like creepos.wiki and like creepos.com and stuff like that. So let's before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's do our initial recommendations.
No.
Okay. Thanks, gamer.
You're welcome.
I'm actually going to partially recommend it on the very low end.
Okay. And I am not recommending this.
Okay.
One of you is right.
Tough but fair. Well, let's dive into this story and find out why. Starting with the rundown. So just as a quick note, this story was originally Spanish and has been translated to English. So it starts off with a narrator, like an investigator or a sleuth, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really come up anymore after this. Not even gonna grace it with the moniker of Nair or the Rock.
Yeah.
So and they're looking into the contagious madness of Jeff the Killer, and gives us the lowdown on how on one such vector of his murderous madness, Nina Hopkins. So Nina, an 11-year-old girl, is a super fan of Jeff the Killer, reading all the stories online and having a crush on him, and definitely waving some red flags on her psychological state. Nina and her 6-year-old brother Chris are eating lunch on their first day of school when some bullies show up, Claudia and her cronies, and in traditional Jeff the Killer fashion, they begin picking on the duo, with Nina defending her brother and going a bit more unhinged as a result of it. Then, one night later, Claudia and her posse arrived and steal Chris away from their home and beat the shit out of him. He is then sent to the hospital and eventually gets better. But when Nina and Chris are back in school together, the bullies show up and beat up on Nina this time. During the conflict, Chris manages to distract Claudia enough for Nina to flee. She hides in an empty house and waits for Claudia to arrive, where she attacks the bully in a surprise strike with a metal bar, and then proceeds to cave her face in with it repeatedly. Then, assumedly, she does the same to Claudia's lackeys when they arrive on the scene, and see that Nina is murdered or has just murdered Claudia. Nina then goes home that night and looks for some bleach to give herself a makeover, finally snapping and wanting to embrace the whole Jeff the Killer side of things. And that's when Jeff the Killer himself appears and with bleach and alcohol in hand and douses her, just like he was doused. And definitely not in a creepy, intimate way. Nope. Moving on.
It wasn't meant to be, was it?
I don't know. I kind of got that vibe, but it was kind of creepy to me, so I just moved on.
Fair, yeah.
He's like whispering in her ear, like as he's doing, it's like yes, you'll be just like me now. It's gonna hurt a little bit. Don't worry. Just like
If we needed more reasons to hate Jeff the Killer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Nina is hospitalized, wakes up, and finds under the wrappings that she looks very similar to Jeff, but is missing some final details. So when she's back home, her mother wakes up to a crazed laughter and arrives to find Nina in her room, carving up her face and stitching her eyes open. Nina asks her mom if she's pretty now, and then attacks her and kills her. She then goes to Chris's room and tenderly wakes him up and asks if he wants to start a new life with her. Sleepily, Chris says yes, and Nina kills him with the same bloody knife she used to kill her mother, and drags his body outside into the night. Finn. So, that was the rundown, the lowdown of Nina the Killer. I suppose we'll move on to everyone tolerates the Grammar Inquisitions at this point. And boy, howdy, do I have a lot of Grammar Inquisition.
You should start by saying this was translated.
I did.
Oh, did you?
I said it right at the beginning of the rundown that this was translated from Spanish to English.
I don't know how the hell I missed that. I was sitting there waiting for it. Like, I figured it out.
Yeah, but yes, to reiterate, as I am doing Grammar Inquisition, this was translated from Spanish to English. So, but I'm still going to get these are more or less going to be just helpful things for if anybody who's on the Fearfic website decides to maybe do some quick clean editing, because that's really what these are, just some issues with the actual grammatical pro. So after Chris recovered from his injuries, he was released from the hospital. Okay, so in this sentence, Chris is Kris, and throughout the rest of the story, it's Chris with CH. So this is just a simple thing where I just think they just need to change it back to Chris, CHRIS.
Maybe at this point he's developed an alter ego.
Named Chris the Killer.
Yeah.
Killer Chris. 2 double Ks.
Yeah. At this point, I was like, who is Chris? This is another character we don't know.
Yeah. After Chris recovered from his injuries, not Chris, her brother, but another Chris who was in the hospital. He was released from the hospital. Yeah. And then we have this one here. Just when it seems like things were returning to normal, they were jumped by Claudia and the gang again. Welcome to my tense talk. I feel like it should be just as it seemed like things were returning to normal, they were jumped. Also, maybe add a comma just after normal, because as it is, it doesn't allow for any kind of break.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be just when it seemed like things were returning to normal, comma, they were jumped by Claudia and the gang again. And then I have my next one here. Claudia and her cronies set upon Nina, punching and kicking her. Claudia and the Cronies was my high school ska band, first off. But
you had a lot of high school ska bands, by the way.
I was going through many phases.
Yeah, apparently.
I mean, there's the Fuzzy Bitches.
Yeah.
Well, that was my punk band.
Mm-hmm.
But also for this sentence, back to the actual grammar part, it needs another comma just after Nina. So it's Claudia and her cronies set upon Nina, comma, punching and kicking her.
Yeah, because otherwise it kind of seems like I had something on this. There we go. Yeah, because otherwise it kind of seems like there's. It's almost like they're saying they're set upon the idea.
Oh, hello, and welcome to Adente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The U stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories. Most creepy, most pasta, and most Jeff the Killer. For tonight, for Jeffuary 2024, we have Nina the Killer. So we are diving into the extended family of Jeff the Killer stories, or the Jeff the Killer adjacent stories.
Because we love the mainline stories so much.
Hey, you like some of the rewrites.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So we're gonna dive into Nina the Killer, who is like the maybe not the original, but one of the original like super fangirl like killers of Jeff the Killer. Certainly based on the Google image showing, it has like the like a metric shit ton of fan art for Nina. So
Yeah, she might have
and
more than Jeff, probably.
it's very possible. So Nina the Killer was written by Alegotic-12. We're covering it through Fearfic.Fandom.com/wiki, which is my new favorite fan wiki site.
Is it?
I mean, it's a new one, so and it has a lot of material. So
Okay.
specifically for Jeffuaries.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for your question. I hate it.
But you can also check out Nina the Killer, this version of Nina the Killer by Alegotic-12 on her DeviantArt account and on like creepos.wiki and like creepos.com and stuff like that. So let's before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's do our initial recommendations.
No.
Okay. Thanks, gamer.
You're welcome.
I'm actually going to partially recommend it on the very low end.
Okay. And I am not recommending this.
Okay.
One of you is right.
Tough but fair. Well, let's dive into the story and find out why. Starting with the rundown. So just as a quick note, this story was originally Spanish and has been translated to English. So it starts off with a narrator, like an investigator or a sleuth, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really come up anymore after this. Not even gonna grace it with the moniker of Nair or the Rock.
Yeah.
So and they're looking into the contagious madness of Jeff the Killer, and gives us the lowdown on how on one such vector of his murderous madness, Nina Hopkins. So Nina, an 11-year-old girl, is a super fan of Jeff the Killer, reading all the stories online and having a crush on him, and definitely waving some red flags on her psychological state. Nina and her 6-year-old brother Chris are eating lunch on their first day of school when some bullies show up, Claudia and her cronies. And in traditional Jeff the Killer fashion, they begin picking on the duo, with Nina defending her brother and going a bit more unhinged as a result of it. Then, one night later, Claudia and her posse arrived and steal Chris away from their home and beat the shit out of him. He is then sent to the hospital and eventually gets better. But when Nina and Chris are back in school together, the bullies show up and beat up on Nina this time. During the conflict, Chris manages to distract Claudia enough for Nina to flee. She hides in an empty house and waits for Claudia to arrive, where she attacks the bully in a surprise strike with a metal bar, and then proceeds to cave her face in with it repeatedly. Then, assumedly, She does the same to Claudia's lackeys when they arrive on the scene and see that Nina is murdered or has just murdered Claudia. Nina then goes home that night and looks for some bleach to give herself a makeover, finally snapping and wanting to embrace the whole Jeff the Killer side of things. And that's when Jeff the Killer himself appears and with bleach and alcohol in hand and douses her, just like he was doused. And definitely not in a creepy, intimate way. Nope. Moving on.
It wasn't meant to be, was it?
I don't know. I kind of got that vibe, but it was kind of creepy to me, so I just moved on.
Fair, yeah.
He's like whispering in her ear, like as he's doing, it's like yes, you'll be just like me now. It's gonna hurt a little bit. Don't worry. Just like
If we needed more reasons to hate Jeff the Killer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Nina is hospitalized, wakes up, and finds under the wrappings that she looks very similar to Jeff, but is missing some final details. So when she's back home, her mother wakes up to a crazed laughter and arrives to find Nina in her room, carving up her face and stitching her eyes open. Nina asks her mom if she's pretty now, and then attacks her and kills her. She then goes to Chris's room and tenderly wakes him up and asks if he wants to start a new life with her. Sleepily, Chris says yes, and Nina kills him with the same bloody knife she used to kill her mother, and drags his body outside into the night. Finn. So, that was the rundown, the lowdown of Nina the Killer. I suppose we'll move on to everyone tolerates the Grammar Inquisitions at this point. And boy, howdy, do I have a lot of Grammar Inquisition.
You should start by saying this was translated.
I did.
Oh, did you?
I said it right at the beginning of the rundown that this was translated from Spanish to English.
I don't know how the hell I missed that. I was sitting there waiting for it. Like I figured it out.
Yeah, but yes, to reiterate, as I am doing Grammar Inquisition, this was translated from Spanish to English. So, but I'm still going to get these are more or less going to be like just helpful things for if anybody who's on the Fearfic website decides to maybe do some quick clean editing, because that's really what these are. Just like some issues with the actual grammatical pro. So after Chris recovered from his injuries, he was released from the hospital. Okay, so in this sentence, Chris is Kris, and throughout the rest of the story, it's Chris with CH. So this is just a simple thing where I just think they just need to change it back to Chris, CHRIS.
Maybe at this point he's developed an alter ego.
Named Chris the Killer.
Yeah.
Killer Chris. 2 double Ks.
Yeah. At this point, I was like, who is Chris? This is another character we don't know.
Yeah. After Chris recovered from his injuries, not Chris, her brother, but another Chris who was in the hospital. He was released from the hospital. Yeah. And then we have this one here. Just when it seems like things were returning to normal, they were jumped by Claudia and the gang again. Welcome to my tense talk. I feel like it should be just as it seemed like things were returning to normal, they were jumped. Also, maybe add a comma just after normal, because as it is, it doesn't allow for any kind of break.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be like, just when it seemed like things were returning to normal, comma, they were jumped by Claudia and the gang again. And then I have my next one here. Claudia and her cronies set upon Nina, punching and kicking her. Claudia and the Cronies was my high school ska band, first off. But
you had a lot of high school ska bands, by
the way. I was going through many phases.
Yeah, apparently.
I mean, there's the Fuzzy Bitches.
Yeah.
Well, that was my punk band.
Mm-hmm.
But also for this sentence, back to the actual grammar part, it needs another comma just after Nina. So it's like Claudia and her cronies set upon Nina, comma, punching and kicking her.
Yeah, because otherwise it kind of seems like Hang on, I had
Yeah.
something on this. There we go. Yeah, because otherwise it kind of seems like there's. It's almost like they're saying they're set upon the idea of Nina going ahead and punching and kicking someone else.
Yeah.
Because there's no comma there.
Also, just as a forewarning, commas are going to be a main line in my grammar inquisitions. They're going to pop up here and there throughout my grammar inquisitions. So,
Are they going to be common? Okay, comma.
commutated,
Common.
commutated,
and comma, but it really doesn't work.
No, I thought you were going like, are they going to be? Yeah, okay, yeah, fair. Okay,
Yeah.
This is over. Moving on.
Yeah, please. Save you for myself.
Yeah. Nina didn't have much chance to outrun the others. They were bigger than her, and she was tiring. So ditch that first comma that's right after Nina, and maybe add it after others, and then add for or as. So it should read like this. Nina didn't have much chance to outrun the others, comma, as they were bigger than her, and she was tiring. Again, these I know this has been translated, but just like these are some helpful things to like for like properly like kind of integrating it into another into a translation for context and such.
I suppose.
Yeah. And then we have this. Ahead, she found an abandoned house which she stumbled into seeking refuge. I think you need to add a comma after into. So after she found an abandoned house which she stumbled into, comma, seeking refuge.
I don't know about that one.
No?
I don't like that one. Let me look at it.
5 minutes later.
I mean,
ahead, maybe like ahead, comma, she found an abandoned house which she stumbled into seeking refuge. Maybe the comma should be after ahead. Am I in the nitpick nook?
Actually,
okay.
I think it should be ahead. She found an abandoned house, comma, which she stumbled into seeking refuge.
Yeah. Okay. So we just couldn't figure out where the comma needed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I got that personally.
Yeah. I'd buy that.
How much?
$1.
All right. Coming over.
What?
I am bitch broke right
now. Aren't we all? Moving on to the next thing I have here. She found a metal bar lying on the ground. It must have been left behind during the construction of the house. Lying on the ground, that must have been. So it's like she found the metal bar lying on the ground. That must have been left behind during the construction of the house. So maybe not necessarily put a comma, but need something else other than it must have, because like it just seemed like it was just like it just kept going, and like there was no proper segue to the next part of the sentence.
I mean, it works either way.
Yeah. Also,
better, I suppose.
Yeah. Also, this is sort of a more elaboration on the actual like context of the scene that's happening here. Shouldn't it be called a new empty house, like earlier, like when she enters the house, or maybe give us a little bit more detail about the condition of the house, like that it's like under construction or something like that. I don't know. Like it just seemed like, why is there a metal bar in the middle of this house, and like why are you just assuming that it was left during the construction of this house, like? Because it was an abandoned house earlier. So it's like I kind of pictured it as like a very old, dilapidated house.
That's true.
And then she mentions that like during the construction of the house is like, so is it a new house that's like still being worked on?
So it's
or
it's not abandoned.
The house is falling apart, and there's a metal bar there because it was falling apart.
Yeah, so maybe get rid of the whole like construction of the during the construction of the house, and like because of the state of the house or something. Maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because it's so specific, saying construction, and then previously it says abandoned, that's where the problem is. So if it was kind of vague in one of the two options, you can kind of assume one or the other, but because it's saying both, you can't really pick.
Yeah, that is just like I want some a little bit more clarity on like my theater of the mind of this building.
Yep.
And the next thing here, Nina ran to the front entrance and waited quietly. Around the corner, she heard Claudia's footsteps as she entered the house. So my fix here is Nina ran to the front of the entrance and waited quietly around the corner until she heard Claudia's footsteps as she entered the house. It's just like it just didn't have any segue or anything like that, like word between like her like hiding behind the corner as she waited for Claudia's footsteps.
Yeah. Was there any commas in there? Because it seemed
No.
kind of long-winded the way that you were saying it too.
It was also very long-winded because I was just reading it like as a like a stream of thought sort of thing. So yeah, there was no commas though. A comma might have also maybe fixed that too. Now I think about it, but commas, where do they go? It's like a wild comma appeared. Pokeball, go. This is where, and the next one here is where I hit the height of my like add your commas, please. Actually, speaking of that, she couldn't be further from it. The only person she could relate to was Jeff. Add that damn comma, please. It just needs to go. It just needs to go after it. So it's like she couldn't be further from it, comma. The only person she could relate to was Jeff.
Yeah. Some time to breathe.
Yeah, exactly. That's all like a comma is good for. And again, we know it's a translation, but like the person who translated could have like gone through and like done some corrections just like for to give proper like flow or like context or give those proper breaks for like the English readers. But moving on to the next thing here. She would fix that later. Later that night, Nina's mother was trying to get some sleep when she was woken by the sound of crazy laughter coming down the hallway. They mostly come at night, mostly. Seriously, it doesn't need that second later. Like in the next sentence, it's like it could just be like she would fix that later, and then that's the end of that sentence. That night, Nina's mother was trying to get some sleep. Blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, because yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Also, I'm hijacking Grammar Inquisition for some actual thoughts here. I'm sorry, but I need this line for I need this line for the context. Because for some reason, reading through this part, I really wanted to fill in some background information that Nina and Chris's mother was a single parent working several jobs or like just being overworked at a diner, and that's why she was trying to get some sleep there. Would also explain how Nina.
Is it?
What?
Is it also the middle of the night?
Maybe, but like also it's just like I just kind of want like I just for some reason it's just like the way that like that read to me when I read like she was trying to get some sleep is just like that she's like dog tired because of like the two jobs she's working to keep ends meet and stuff like that, and also that would explain why it would explain how Nina could get home after killing like 3 people, presumably, and look for bleach and alcohol to douse herself in, like at 11 years of age.
Yeah.
Like the mom isn't around as much because she's trying to work to make money and stuff like that for the family, and like not seeing all the red flags that her daughter's giving and off and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, earlier when Jeff showed up and doused Nina, I think it would have been narratively cool if he was actually a hallucination or a figment of Nina's obsessed and insane imagination, rather than actually being Jeff there.
Yeah, like she's like in the bathroom doing this, and she could see him, quote unquote, in the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. Or like I think like even if like it was like she sees him like with the 2 bottles in hand and like dousing her, but it's in reality she's doing it, and like maybe Chris stumbles in and like it's like, Nina, why are you pouring alcohol and bleach over yourself? Oh God, we gotta call the police. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, for all we know, she is just doing it to herself, and she's just imagining this because we only have this from
her mad perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. And
at this point, she is insane. So yeah. But yeah, I'm done with my hijack. Back to the Grammar Inquisition. I just had to pull that up because I didn't want to like repeat the quote for like the mom waking up and such.
Yep.
And then here's the next one here. She crept out of bed and stumbled towards the sound. Maybe it was Nina. She's been acting strangely ever since the accident. The doctor said there could be some serious trauma involved, she thought. She was worried about Nina, so she thought she'd check on her just to make sure she was okay. So this is like a sentence structure thing for me. I feel like the last sentence there, where like she was worried about Nina and wanted to go check on her, should go before the thought bubble or like the thought dialogue, as it were. Like she crept out of the bed and stumbled toward the sound. She was worried about Nina, so she thought she'd check on her just to make sure she was okay. And then it goes into like, maybe it was Nina, like she's been acting strange, blah, blah, blah. Also, I understand that people do think out loud, like they talk what their thoughts are. Like hell, I do it all the time.
Yeah.
But for this instance, I don't think the dialogue quotes were necessary. Because it felt like she was like talking to somebody in the story rather than talking to herself, or like maybe it should have added like she said to herself rather than she thought at the end of it.
Well, if it says thought, then you know it's thought.
Yeah, but if she's talking to herself, that's also like she's thinking, like she's just saying her thoughts out to herself. It just would add more clarity as to like what exactly the context of what she's saying to me.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Okay, yay. And I'll move on to the last grammar acquisition I have. Of course, it's something to do with commas.
Why wouldn't it?
Yeah. Nina said as she rushed her mother with the knife, plunging it deep into her heart, her mom crying out one last breath before slumping to the floor in a pool of blood. Please add a comma just after heart. Like yeah, so it should be like Nina said as she rushed her mother with the knife, plunging it deep into her heart, comma, her mom crying out one last breath before slumping to the ground in a pool of blood.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the end of my grammar inquisitions. Mikey, D stands for evil. Take it away.
Well, you did a good job, so I have a conjunction.
Excellent.
And next stop, Conjunction Junction. Doot, doot.
But when I looked deeper into it, I discovered she is worse than a monster. It soon became clear that this young and impressionable girl had become a massive fan of the infamous serial killer Jeffuary Woods. But Claudia didn't see it that way. It read, I know what you did. Don't worry. I won't tell anyone. You're skillful, but dangerous. It was at this stage when Nina would feel her sanity begin to slip away. It read, I'm sorry about your brother. I hope he gets better. Don't think you're alone. I'm here. I'll be your friend, but unfortunately distant. It was at this moment Claudia's two cronies, Malcolm and Yoni, burst through the front door. It couldn't be, but it was. It took a few seconds for her eyes to adjust to the dim light in the room. Finn.
Wow. Actually, so strangely enough, that's actually a pretty succinct rundown. But also, it touched on something that I'd meant to bring up as well in regards to her like hallucinating things. Like even Jeff's letters to her could have just been like letters that she wrote, and then like she just completely like in her mind like just like blacked out about. So then she rereads them, and it's like she thinks that it's Jeff talking to her, or like somebody is like sending her these letters.
Yeah.
But it's really her, like, or even like they're from like her diary or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Also, in regards to those letters, like specifically like the first one where he's like, "You're skillful but dangerous." What did she do there that was skillful previously?
I don't know. Like she like I think she punched Claudia, I think, in the face, right?
It was either that or she brandished a knife.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah,
She brandished a knife, and then that stopped. That de-escalated the situation.
That's what it was.
And Jeff's like, "You're skillful. You pulled out a knife." knife.
You're skillful. You must be. You're wielding a knife. You're
Yes.
deadly. Or you're dangerous. Yeah.
And for those unaware, Mikey strings these sentences together from sentences in the story that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ands, or buts. There's always better words to use.
Indeed.
Except when it's dialogue, when it doesn't matter. But
Yeah, I mean, but
it doesn't matter.
also this is like a Spanish translation into English, but like, like there's different syntax and such. But like, yeah, let us have our fun, okay?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Mikey, you don't have anything else aside from the conjunction junction?
No.
All right, gamer.
Mikey says you did a good job, cultist. That's not saying that he enjoyed your points that you brought up. He's saying that you got all of his stuff.
No, I know. I was just double checking.
I'm just double checking with you to see if you understand. I'm double checking your.
You're triple checking, technically.
Check actually. I'm double checking your double.
It's a double Hamlet.
Yep. Anyways.
Yes.
I never could have imagined that Jeff the Killer's madness would be so overwhelming. Not only is he consumed by it, it affects those around him. Someone with an extremely fragile mind could be pushed into insanity. I've recently learned of a new killer. And then it goes down to the next paragraph.
Yeah.
Actually, is that... No, it doesn't go to the next paragraph there. It continues in the same paragraph. Either way, at that point, or around that point, I feel like it should go to the next paragraph instead of keep going saying, like, my first thought was she was just crazy fan because of her appearance, blah, 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 blah. But I feel like it flows better if it goes, I never could have imagined that Jeff the Killer's madness could be so overwhelming. Not only is he consumed by it, but affects those around him. Someone with an extremely fragile mind could be pushed to insanity. Period. New paragraph. I've recently learned of a new killer. Because it's switching from Jeff being the focus to Nina being the focus.
Mm-hmm.
The focus is shifting, so I feel like the paragraph should shift as well.
Yeah, because like he laid down like the information that like Jeff's madness is contagious, and then like here's an example. So like yeah.
So yeah, everything talking about Nina should just be clicked on top of here's a short summary of what I know so far, because like it's all about her.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I already read this, but whatever. My first thought was that she was just a crazy fan of Jeff the Killer because of her appearance, but when I looked deeper into it, I discovered she is worse than a monster. So for me, the way it's written, it says she's not just a crazy fan, she's worse than a monster, comparing Jeff to a monster and all that.
Yep.
But the way it's worded doesn't flow very well for me. Personally, I would rather it say she is worse than that monster, which is referencing Jeff, but when I look deeper into it, she was worse than that, worse than any monster I know, or something like that.
Yeah, I would take either or, honestly. Like, I think worse than that monster is like...
It was just talking about Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. And then my last one here, this is when she's waiting in the house for Claudia to come in and attack her. Claudia was approaching the corner that Nina was hiding behind. And then in quotes, "Get out here now," end quote, was all she had time to say. For me, personally, I would put in a word or two more of what Claudia said, like in the dialogue, to make it seem more like she was cut off, because the sentence, "Get out here now," is a complete sentence.
Yeah, like, I kind of want it to be like, "Get out here now," and then like, whack.
Yeah, or put in or.
Yeah.
Like, get out here now, or an ellipses or a dash or whatever you want to do there. Just something so it on its own can't stand alone as its own sentence, so you know it's cut off.
Yeah.
Because I know it says immediately is like was all she had time to say, but that
when you're
just
reading
a full sentence, like that's all she meant to say.
Yeah.
I had to get into the next sentence, which is super far away.
I know.
To hear that it was cut off.
Yeah, you gotta make that double jump to get to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I agree. Like, because when you're reading a story, the reason why people do that sudden like break in a word when they're being interrupted is to incite a sudden like exciting moment.
Yeah, and it's not sudden if
it's a complete word or it's a complete sentence. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that is the end of my grammar in yellow.
All right. I suppose we move on to actual thoughts. So, in the grammar question, how I decided I was going to hijack it for an actual thought because I didn't want to repeat a word, or a sentence, or a quote. Yeah, I'm basically going to repeat a quote that both of you have said now. I never could have imagined that Jeff the Killer's madness could be so overwhelming. Not only is he consumed by it, it affects those around him. I think actually it should, a quick grammar position. I think actually that affects should be it affects those around him, not effects.
Oh, shit. I always screw that one up.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah. Anyway, someone with an extremely fragile mind could be pushed to insanity. So this is why I gave it I was willing to give the story a partial recommendation on the very low end. I like this idea, the idea that of a killer that emits a corruptive field or an infectious aura that propagates more killers. It's sort of like how in the spoilers for the Saw franchise.
Oh, no.
It's sort of like the Saw franchise. Some of the survivors of Jigsaw's tests often become cultists to his ways. Hence why there's the cult of Jigsaw and such. But it's more in these stories and in creepypastas, it's more on a preternatural or even a supernatural effect. Like those who survive Jeff's kills or delve into his kills, like investigating them and stuff like that, end up getting contaminated by and suffer something much worse than death. They literally become the manifestation of death, or they become a killer themselves.
Yeah, it's almost like Jeff the Killer has an anomalous effect, like he's an SCP at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And it adds to the whole the creepypasta effect, where it's so he's also he's basically literally the literal manifestation of that evil begets evil, or the cycle of violence and hatred cannot be or only continues when you use violence and hatred to stop it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's the thing in the story.
Message behind Jeff the Killer stories.
No, I just think that what the story started off saying, I'm digging into this because it seems like Jeff the Killer's madness is contagious and it creates killers and stuff. I like that idea. I would steal that for a game scenario. I would use that for a game scenario.
Mm-hmm. You take inspiration for that for a game scenario.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, legal team.
You got it.
Legal team. Oh. Moving on. If only someone had seen the warning signs early, maybe all this could have been stopped. On the first day of school, Nina and Chris had found a place in the schoolyard to eat when they were greeted by 3 students who were later identified as Claudia, Malcolm, and Yoni. Claudia was a notorious bully and claimed the area as her territory. Is this a trigger or a catalyst for these instances of killer stuff? 3 bullies begin picking on some kid, and that primes at least one of the victims of the bullying to become a killer. We're going into some archetype / avatar of the angsty teen killer in postmodern magic here. I'm seeing a ritual being created here of how to propagate a certain monster or some kind of horror.
I just realized, and you might want to cut this because it's personal.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Me, this guy that was fatter than me and this guy that was thinner than me didn't really bully you, but
that's the thing. You guys didn't really. You guys tolerated me, if anything. I think if anything, it was I was the younger kid that was you guys tolerated, and you guys do some. I trust me. What you guys were doing was not bullying, because I had bullies. I had that.
I'll go.
I had several people that would bully me on the continent, and you guys were not one of them. I had one that was constantly calling me earthquake because of my weight. And then I had 2 guys that were just constantly like picking on me, like through like 9th and 10th grade, which is, and you know what's weird? I eventually became friends with all of them.
Of course, yeah, that's
because I confronted them, and then they had they when I confronted them about like why they were picking on me and stuff like that, they had no reason why, and then we became friends.
Yep.
And similarly, like what the earthquake guy, like the thing was like he kept picking on me, like kept saying that name because I would try to ignore it or I'd get frustrated about it. But when he finally said like, "Hey, earthquake," and I said, "Hey," and he's like, "You've accepted the nickname. I accept you." What?
Then he never calls you again.
Yeah, and then he never called me again. Yeah. So yeah.
Police are fucking weird.
Yeah. Yeah, like what you guys like. I feel like because it was more or less like you guys would also like. It was like constructive, like some of it was criticism of like my art and stuff like that,
Sure,
and
yeah.
all that. But like I also like don't see that as bad because you guys did help me ultimately in the long run. And that's what like
tried to help you toughen up a bit too.
Yeah, because like honestly, like I didn't have like I was like I only had sisters. I didn't have like older brothers or anything like that. So I think I don't really like think back on it now. I mean, you might be able to kind of like perceive it as maybe you guys were bullying, but like also it just seems like you guys it never seemed like you guys were like hatefully like trying to like make my life miserable.
No, it was all in quote unquote good fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fine line sometimes, and especially in high school, it's kind of like a tricky thing.
Yeah.
And now that the audience has a little bit more of a glimpse into our earliest relationship, or like earliest,
maybe they don't,
or maybe not, because we left it pretty, because we either pulled it out or we've left it pretty vague.
Yeah.
Like moving on. So back to what I was saying, like this whole like the three bullies that like pick on a kid and like prime one of them to be who's already unhinged, and so it's basically become a killer. It kind of reminded me of like the stuff out of like Unknown Armies, which is a tabletop game about postmodern magic, and like it uses things like you become an avatar or an archetype of a theme or of an ideology. So like if you personify something, you become that thing and you get power from it. And now that I think about it even more, I think Unknown Armies would be great for running just like creepypasta themed scenarios and adventures in, because it's like that kind of idiosyncratic magic.
Yeah.
And everything's about rituals. It's very like Alan Wake and like Control, which Control is also heavily inspired by SCP-Foundation. At least like when you look through it, when you're playing through the game, it's like this feels very SCP. It's like that is very like also Unknown Armies. So yeah. I guess here's my game fodderableness for this story. But I was just like, I was noticing a trend. It's like the kids getting bullied. It's like, so is this like a catalyst or a trigger for like this event to happen? Like, does it need to be like people who like Jeff the Killer but are also bullied themselves? And then I realized, oh no, it's just we're rehashing the origin story of Jeff the Killer in this story.
Well, like, is that Jeff's thing? Does he hang around schools and look for kids that are being bullied on by?
That's true. Yeah, maybe that's it. Like,
it's like, are they even in the same state that he's in?
So here's the thing. Moving on to my next moving. Oh, like are this? You mean like are they in the same state as Jeff?
Yeah.
Well, Jeff is transient. He can move around. He moves around.
Oh, okay.
Like he travels. I assume he travels across America, like killing people. So like he could just be like stalking around like different like schools and stuff like that, like looking for victims, but also looking for prodigies. If you want to go that route. But actually, what I thought you were saying was about the bullies in relation to these kids. So we're gonna move to the next thing I have here. One night, while her brother was playing out in the yard, Claudia and her gang showed up for revenge. They knew how much Nina loved her little brother, so to get back at her, they took it out on him. They snatched him away from his home and beat him senseless. Then they dumped him out of their car and just drove off. How old are these bullies?
Yeah.
Nina is 11 years old and Chris is 6.
So if she drives her car, then like I have a note on this, but I'm going to chime in.
Okay,
if she drives a car, she's a freaking high schooler going to a public school to beat up kids.
Yes. And now here's the thing. Like, I guess they could be older. Yeah, like they could be older students, obviously. But then I feel like the story needs to give us the age, like we got with Nina and Chris. Like we both got like Nina 11, Chris 6. We should have gotten like Claudia 16 or 17, and like yeah. And then again, like you said, like that does kind of like
bigger. That's it.
Yeah,
but that could just mean they're
like
stronger.
They're bigger and they're taller and stuff like that. Yeah. Honestly, I did actually look in and see what the minimum driving age in most places is 16. Like even like in Spain, because the story was written in Spanish originally. So I did like kind of like jump over to like Spain and Mexico to see what their age limits were and such, and it is still 16.
No one's driving a car in public school.
Yeah, but yeah, so like if they're driving, if they're driving, they're 16 years old at least, and that just paints these bullies as even more pathetic, and me rooting for Nina to kill them because they're
yes. Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
Yeah,
the other option is they are also like 11 or 12, but Claudia just steals her parents' car all the time.
Yeah, or maybe Claudia has an older brother. Like that should have also been added. Like maybe like there could have been something added where like maybe it doesn't need to necessarily be added, but like something where like Claudia like dumped Chris out of the car, out of her brother's car, or something like that as they drove away. Like so, like make
you're saying like the older brother is also a bully and he's taking his younger sister under his wing. Be like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to be a bully. You got to start young, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so go to public school, find someone to beat up. I'll drive you around. It's fine.
Yeah. Like basically evil beget evil kind of thing. Again, there's themes here. It's layers upon layers.
Or there's another option where the bullies are bullying their parents so they can get them to drive them anywhere.
Yeah, even to go beat the shit out of someone.
Now, honey, I don't know. It's like, shut up, Dad. Just drive me there. Well, this kid should probably go to a hospital. Shut up, Dad. We're just driving past his house and we're going to dump him. Oh, okay, honey. Okay, watch it. Calm down. I want $30 for my allowance this time. You're being a cheapskate last time. You only got me $20 this week. Also, so like I also did some looking into like checking if these kids like at the age of 16 or like in their teens would be in the same school, even referencing the Spanish schools, again, given the language translation stuff. It's fairly unlikely, though perhaps the elementary school that Chris and Nina are in borders next to, like, basically they share the same field as the high school next door, which is common. I've actually have like my middle school was actually right next to was right next to an elementary school and only divided by a hill and a playground in the middle of like an open, like a field and like a sort of a walkway between the two.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Back when I was growing up. So I could kind of see that maybe this, and also I've seen in like some media and stuff like that in American schools, often the high school is like right next to the elementary school. Like they're within the same, like they're within walking, like quick walking distance too.
I didn't know that was a thing. So if that's a thing, that is somewhat acceptable, but it should be explained.
Yeah.
That they are high schoolers that jump the fence and beat up the young kids.
Yeah, or it wouldn't even be jumping the fence, so you can really just walk across the field.
If it's an open field, yes, but if they have a fence, then there's a fence.
Then you can just hop the fence.
Just something.
Yeah.
There needs to be more description as to how they're there and why they're beating up young
11-year-olds and 6-year-olds.
Bullies generally just focus on people their own age or slightly younger, but not like considerably.
Not like this is like literally like 10 years they're young. They're like 6 to 10 years they're senior or they're juniors.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually bullies go for like the weak and like the slightly underage, not like not this underage. So, but yeah, it was definitely something that popped up because it was like wait, these kids are like driving. It makes no sense.
Yeah, as soon as the driving came up, I was like, I don't know what's happening anymore. I have to rethink everything now.
Yeah. And then I'm going to move on to the next thing I have here. Claudia's face now just a crumpled mess of red. It was at this moment Claudia's two cronies, Malcolm and Yoni, burst through the front door. They stopped dead in their tracks, horrified by the sight before them. Nina just looked up and smiled. "Who's next?" she asked excitedly. That night, after Nina returned home, she decided it was time for a makeover to match her newfound identity. She was sick of looking normal, like everybody else, because she wasn't normal anymore. I like how we just brushed past any repercussions from her parents or any details about her covering up, messily killing, assumedly, 3 people here. Like it just went from like who's next? It's like she said excitedly. That night after Nina returned home, it's like, and I mean, like in a movie, that's probably how they would like kind of like they'd fade to black or they'd cut away to like hours later. But like in this story, like I just kind of felt like it suddenly like it's very jarring.
Yes, it is jarring.
Yes.
However, the bodies are in an abandoned house.
True, yeah. But like she's also probably covered in red, or she's got red on her because of like bashing Claudia's face in.
I guess.
Yeah. Again, gives credence more to like the fact that her mom is a single parent, like working like a bunch of jobs to like make ends meet and like support her children, and that's why she's not at home to care for them or to watch over them or pick up on certain signs and such.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to get at is I want some extra, like I want more elaboration on like the backstory and some of that in the story. But this is sort of a rundown also, based off of like what the narrator says at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
when you were reading that,
yeah.
when you got to the moment where it's like Claudia's face is now crumpled mess of red, it was that at that moment Claudia's two cronies realized they fucked
up. Yes. It was at that moment they fucked up. Yeah. I love it. Also, I feel like "Who's next" should be Nina's killer's like slogan, like a la Jeff's "Go to sleep"
slogan from the WWF. Do not taint Bill Goldberg doing his awesome run of killing so many people in the ring.
I mean, it's just like it like I guess maybe that's why, is because like in a morbid psychotic way it kind of has a good ring to it. It's like, who's next? Kill. So yeah, I guess yeah. But yeah, that's just this is a little thought there about that.
He went 173-0. Do not besmirch him.
I'm sorry. Moving on to the next thing I have here. Her hair that once reached to her knees was now charred black and only reached midway down her back. I think you mean it's gone, but in patches. Because that's what happens with
hair.
Because that's what happens. But go on. We've seen this before in Jeff the Killer stories.
Oh yeah,
where
true.
like hair doesn't make sense when caught aflame.
Because Jeff would be basically bald too, right?
Yeah, or like at least like or there at least be patches of it maybe. But yeah. He'd look more like a Fallout victim from like one of the wastelanders who are like have like hair falling out kind of thing. Where it's just like strands of hair and stuff like that on them in the Fallout games. Then the shoulder length black hair because it's been charred black. That's not how hair works.
That's not how fire works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'll move on to the next thing I have here. Nina, what happened to you? Screamed Nina's mom. Nina finished stitching her last eyelid open before replying. What do you mean? What happened to me? I'm finishing my makeover. Don't I look beautiful? Don't you think I look beautiful, Mommy? Why did you do this to your face, Nina? You don't think I look beautiful, do you, Mommy? Nina picked up the knife and stood up slowly. Her mother began to back out of the room, afraid to turn away. You should have just said I looked beautiful. Apparently, Nina has gone full-blown Kuchisaki Onna. The Japanese urban legend of a lady with a sliced mouth that asks you if she's pretty if you like come across her in the street. and
wow.
then pretty much kills you based on the answer. Like
Okay.
either if you say that she's pretty, you get the sliced up mouth. Like she carves out your face. So that you're pretty like her. If you say she's not pretty, she kills you. And the only real way that I've heard like to get away from her is to basically say something that would confuse her and then run as she is stunned by the confusion.
Wow. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. But yeah, like basically this is Kachisaki Onna, the slit mouth woman.
Wonder if that just happened by happenstance or there's
We've-
inspiration.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Like we actually covered Kuchisaki Onna on an Al Dente episode, like I think last year with Ian from RPX and Adam, and like because he's really into like the Japanese yokai and urban legends and stuff. And I think we did reference like there might be some like link between like Jeff the Killer stuff and Kuchisaki Onna.
Yeah.
But yeah, specifically for Nina, like yeah, it's like maybe like this should have like it's like maybe this was like the Spanish equivalent. Nina is the Spanish equivalent of Kuchisaki Onna, and that's how that's the origin story for it. It was actually a Jeff the Killer OC. But moving on to my last thing here. Nina? Yes, it's me. Do you want to start a new life with me, Chris? Yes. He nodded sleepily. Good, she said before she plunged the knife into his chest. Go to sleep, my prince, was the last thing she said to him before she dragged his body outside. Well, clearly Nina is in a video game world and is just making her brother respawn. Actually, that's not a bad idea for an Eclipse Phase scenario, especially given the Lost Project, which is a bunch of kids that were created in a simulation and only knew a simulation because their childhood was basically accelerated like 6 times the speed of normal, like the normal like time speed, and they just basically lived in a video game, so they became homicidal like psychotics and sociopaths. So I might have to do a brainstorm later. But yeah, I like this idea of just like it's like do you want to start a new life with me, Chris? Yeah, it sounds great. Cool. Stab. Now to respawn your body somewhere else.
See you in the hub world.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see you in Agartha.
Yeah. Oh God. Don't make me run a scenario based off of Jeff the Killer in Secret World.
Yeah.
Even though it would totally work. Just an insane bee.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody who's confused, bees in the Secret World tabletop RPG and the MMO are people who have consumed a magic bee that gives them nigh immortal superpowers, but at a cost. So, moving on. Oh wait, that's actually the end of my actual thoughts. So, Mikey, D stands for evil.
All right. So the main actual thought here that you haven't really touched much on is where is the police and where is the parents when things go wrong? Like,
Well, like I
The-
explained, like
for-
Nina's
well-
mom works several jobs and
Yes.
yeah.
but the first instance of brandishing a weapon at school, like
Is she in jail?
that doesn't fly.
Yeah, she would be suspended at least. Like
If
definitely.
anyone saw that,
If
or
anybody
if
saw
the
it,
bullies even mentioned it, because the bullies might have so little cred that they don't believe them anymore.
well, generally, I mean, yeah, not always, but like generally, like yeah, bullies will like in that kind of scenario, the bullies will be the ones to tell on somebody who's trying to defend themselves and make themselves look like the victims. So,
Mm-hmm. But again,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
they've done that 15,000 times and every time they check it out, it's always a lie, then it's the boy who cried wolf situation.
true.
Yeah.
But again,
And
all this
then-
could be interesting plot points that could be written in the story that aren't there.
Yeah.
And then Chris getting sent to the hospital because he gets beaten to a bloody pulp. Like, they're police are going to investigate, like, how did this happen? Because clearly, like, they'll know that he was beaten up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I fell down the
So,
stairs. It's fine.
Yeah. Totally fell down the stairs and out the window, 2 stories.
Mhm.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting my Twilight trapped into my Jeff the Killer OC creepypastas. I'm sorry.
Please don't combine those two things. I will leave.
Yeah, and then, like, even was it that Nina goes to the hospital because she uses bleach and alcohol
Yeah,
and fire,
because
and
again,
then
that's how that That's how that works. But yeah,
yeah. Well, that's a holdover from the original Jeff the Killer story, so
yeah.
we've beaten that horse to death already. So
I mean, so is the story. Since it's basically just repeating the origin of Jeff, but instead it's Nina.
yeah,
But yeah,
but again, like, she should theoretically have like 3rd-degree burns on her face
yeah.
and head, and just, like, she's gonna be wrapped up for days of
If
bandages.
if days, maybe weeks, depending on
Yeah,
how bad it is. Yeah.
but it just happens too quickly in the story for it to be believable to me.
Yeah. Well, again, the other thing that I mean, I don't want to like you're right, but also like this story is not only like getting moving away from like that's it's just it's a translation. Also, it is technically a debrief or almost like a rundown. Like it's sort of a summarization of like events too.
Yeah,
Like there could be that's a problem like I have with the story is like it is a summarization, but like I kind of wish that there had been more details to kind of flesh out the scenario, the situation.
yeah, and explain time jumps, like,
Yeah.
not just, oh yeah, later that night I was back at home, like,
Yeah. Like yeah, like almost like scrap the person who's like apparently writing this like bit at the very beginning, or like at least make it a little bit more like it just seemed like that went nowhere. Like that literally is just at the very beginning, and that goes nowhere else. And like there's no like outro for it even.
Yeah, it's not like he's like, I'm compiling this information to give to the police, or I'm sending this out in a bulletin to everyone in the area to warn them about Nina. It's just
Yeah.
like, I'm here, and then I slowly disappear through the story, and you forget I'm here, and then it's a first-person story.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's just suddenly they become they become a outside observer narrator, like the omnipresent observer.
Which it should have been from the get-go.
Yeah, unless this voice, this narrator is the ghost of Chris.
Or maybe it's
Oh yeah, maybe it's Jeff. He's talking in the third person.
Jeff, the narrator.
Yeah.
and that's the end of my actual thoughts.
Okay. Then Gamer, what do we got for actual thoughts?
Let me see what is left. So yeah, we literally just brushed on this, but like after the first paragraph, Nair says, "Here's a short story of what I know so far." And at that point, and actually, with hindsight after reading the whole story, I don't even know who Nair is. Not that I need a name specifically, but so far the story, and like up until that point, the story had just been bullet points of facts with no story there. Eventually, a story does actually begin, so I'm glad of that. It's not just stating facts the whole time like it did at the start, but still.
Yeah. Like you can do that. Like epistolary writing is a thing where like you do like sort of like a factual like it's just the story is just a combination of like newspaper articles and like factual like data.
Yes, and that would be a story where someone is putting out evidence.
Yeah.
For people to know, you know.
Yeah.
With like weaving a little story in between, like that'd be good, but that's not this.
Yeah.
And then right after Nair says that, he says, "You'll have to read between the lines to decipher the truth for yourself, but this is what I know." Why? Why do we have to read
Why-
between the lines to know the truth? If
Also-
you know the truth, aren't you putting this info together and posting it online for people to be informed about this killer? You should be informing us if you know the truth and not be coy about it. Mr.
Also-
Narrator.
Mr. Jeff the narrator.
Yeah.
Also, I love that line because it doesn't fucking matter at all in the story, because like there is no reading between the lines by the end of the story. It's like, no, it's pretty cut and dry what's going
Yeah.
on, how it happens. There's no reading between the lines here. Unless the reading between the lines is me like constantly like wanting to add backstory to certain characters and certain scenarios in the story. Like maybe that's what he
Yeah.
meant, but
Well, like that's not the truth. The quote unquote truth is not whether or not Nina's mom works 2 jobs. Like,
and isn't at home constantly, so like she couldn't like see the warning signs and such. But like, yeah,
the only hidden truth that would make sense is if they live in Durban.
Yeah.
Because then that's
God.
why the cops don't do anything.
Yeah.
By the way, we should probably say this because we never really do. For those unaware, Durpland is a running gag that we do. It's a joke town that like everyone is in common with, because
It's a joke town / state.
Yeah, it could be whatever it needs to be.
Yeah, it's a narratively convenient location, like gag location of absurdity.
Yes, which
That-
most creepypastas are set in, it seems.
Well, it's our like goofy headcanon explanation for like all of the indiscrepancies with like authority and society in certain creepypasta stories, where it just doesn't make sense logically, like how the world is reacting to the scenario.
Yeah, and instead of like going at length about it, we just go, "Oh, they're in Durpland. Let's move on."
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing with the SNTF, the Supernatural Task Force.
Yeah, indeed, our other running gag.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'll move on. Next one's pretty short. It brings up Claudia, Malcolm, and Yanni. Those are obviously the stand-ins for Randy, Keith, and Troy.
Yeah.
Also, Malcolm and Yanni did nothing.
They died.
They didn't even have a description.
No, they like at least
there's Claudia and then them. They're there.
Claudia, who we assume just based off like what we got was like it's just a betch.
Yeah.
And then we got her cronies, Malcolm and Yanni. And like I like cool like interesting names. Like I mean I've never really heard of Yanni, but that's an interesting like name to grab for this. But like yeah, like at least with like Randy, Troy, and what was the other one? Keith. At least we got some like one of them's rotund, like we get like physical descriptions of the JTK killer or like bullies.
They had actual personality. These two didn't say a goddamn word.
They are. If you notice in my rundown, I was constantly changing the name of what they were. Like Claudia and her cronies, Claudia and her posse, Claudia and her lackeys. Just like they're just the background, like the shadows of Claudia.
Yes, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
but I feel like that's what it should be in the actual story too. Like, just refer to them as a couple of cronies, a couple of bullies. Like, they don't need a name because they don't have any character. So you either have to give them character or let them just be shadows.
Yeah.
Because literally all they did was, at that point, they realized they fucked up. That's their entire, like, that's the only time they acted.
Yeah. Also, I want to add insert some more like ridiculous, dumb backstory. Claudia and her cronies are actually in a ska band in their high school.
Yeah, probably.
It's like, hey, I'm Claudia, and we're Claudia and the cronies.
Don't make these characters likable though.
I don't. No, they are pathetic and like kill them. Like they're the victims in like slasher flicks that you want to die.
Yes.
Like based on what they're doing and based off the circumstances.
Well, just Claudia, because Malcolm and Yanni, who knows what they are? They could just be hand puppets for all we know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're complacent. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah.
And we talked about 11-year-old with a car. Moving on, and then actually, Mikey brought up this, and I guess you did to a point as well. Like, there's no parents. Like, after the first brutal attack, I feel like the mom would show up and be like asking what happened here. but it's so glossed over.
Yeah.
The mom only shows up to die. She only shows up in her death scene.
Literally, yeah. Like she wasn't even at the like they don't even reference her in the hospital when Chris is in the hospital.
No.
It's just the only person that's there is Nina.
Yeah, and whoever the doctor was that was taking the bandages off.
Yeah.
Like even just mention the mom's there, like because like if you don't make, I can't care about you killing a character that I don't know about.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird.
It's one of the reasons why I kept inserting different backstory. Like my mind kept like wanting to insert different like backstory stuff to them. So also I don't know if you there was no doctor that unbound Nina's bandages. She did that herself. Like she just nonchalant. Apparently the hospital was pretty empty too because she just nonchalantly got out of her bed like after being burned and like all that stuff, walked over to the nearest mirror in like the bathroom or something like that, and just pulled off the bandages herself.
Wait, really?
Yeah. In the story, she walks out away from the bed to the nearest mirror. Like, where are the nurses? Where's the doctor?
For some reason, I headcanon that into something that would make sense. Oh.
That's like 1 degree more than like typonesing. It's just like plotonesing.
Yeah.
Your mind couldn't like comprehend. It's like, no, clearly there needs to be some plot here. It's like, you just do it subconsciously, where I know what I'm doing it.
Obviously, a nurse did this, and she stayed there for a few days on medication to make sure she's okay, and then they let her go home. That's clearly what happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, sure. In your head canon.
Okay. Oh, man. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the end of my notes.
Okay. Then we move on to final thoughts. So yeah, I'm willing to partially recommend this on the very low end. There are some good ideas in here, but overall, it's just a rehash of Jeff the Killer's origin with an OC / actual like Jeff the Killer fangirl as the subject of the origin. Like they just replaced Jeff the Killer with Nina the Killer. I wanted it to be, as we've really been like continually rehashing, I really wish that this had been like fleshed out more and elaborated on, give us more like information about like the character situations and stuff like that. Scrap as much as I like honestly, like as much as I like the idea of like the either get rid of that investigator like at the very beginning, like running us through this, or have them be more involved in like here's my dossier, or here's my all the information I can gather from this case kind of thing. And go into that, like flesh it out, elaborate it more. There is some potential in here at its core, but not enough for me to give it even a full, like even a half recommendation. It's like a full, like, and definitely not a full recommendation. So that's why I was willing to give it like a partial on the very low end. But Mikey, D stands for evil.
Well, as stated in mine, I don't like that there's no adults doing anything.
Yeah.
Other than maybe driving the kids around so they can beat up the other people.
And I would assume there's probably teachers, unless this is
God, this really is just Derpland. Yeah, this is just Derpland, or it's like Kids on Bikes, or like Little Fears game, like the game system, where like adults don't really factor in to the kids' adventures. They just do stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then the whole bleach, alcohol, charred hair scenario just doesn't work, as we know. And overall, I just can't recommend this. Like even when we do get the mother figure, they're just there to be killed.
Yeah. You know what this feels like? Again, honestly, like all the issues all the plot issues we seem to have with this, again, are the same plot issues we had with the original Jeff the Killer origin story.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's just based on the original Jeff the Killer origin story, which isn't exactly the best writing.
Yeah. And I mean, again.
But then again, some of the rewrites are based on the original one, and they're quite good. So who knows?
So, Mikey, basically, yeah, you're not recommending this one because of all that.
Yeah.
Did you just like nod?
I'm not recommending it.
Okay. I didn't hear like an affirmative there. I just heard like all right, and gamer.
No.
Yeah, that's fair. Again, like tough but fair.
Yeah,
Gamer.
like I just really wasn't a fan of this one. Like,
Yeah.
in so many ways. There was a previous female-focused Jeff the Killer story that I don't remember the name of.
White the Killer.
Sure, yeah, that's probably it. But that one felt quite a bit different to Jeff the Killer. It was its own beast, you know.
Yeah. The whole plot line. I mean, the circumstances that it wasn't just a rehash. It was like her own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get it that this one's basically a copycat killer situation, but I just don't like the way it's done. And it's kind of glorifying the idea of being a copycat killer.
Yeah.
And
it's sort of like being, and like that is sort of like in real life, like there are like women and guys who get like they see like a serial killer who's been captured and is in jail and stuff like that, like on the news and stuff, and they form a sort of an ad, like a they get hot and bothered for them and stuff like that, and they write letters to them, like, and they have fan mail, they create fan mail and stuff like that. Like that's a thing in real life, in true crime and stuff like that. Like there are serial killers out there who get like love letters and fan mail from people, like from people who want to have their babies, or like people who want to be their partner and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like it's very interesting and like kind of disturbing, like that kind of fandom.
It's very concerning.
Yes, but that's just something that like is a part of, like, unfortunately, like our weird modern human psychology.
And that's one of the parts that I don't like about this story, and part of the reason I don't like Jeff the Killer stories in general, like any of them to a point, some of them are actually pretty well written, because the whole thing about them is this guy went nuts and killed people. He's awesome. I want to be like him.
Yeah, it's very strange
ideals, you know.
Yeah, it's that very strange, toxic, edgy teen power fantasy of like you're being bullied, and don't you wish you could just fucking snap and kill your bullies?
Like even putting that idea in someone's head, like it's not good.
No, it isn't good.
It's good to have some sort of an outlet of it, like reading a story about it compared to actually doing something like this yourself. But I don't know, man. I just didn't like the way that this one was portrayed. No,
that's fair. I think if they had leaned more into that, like there is some kind of corruption that's being started. It's not just like she's a fangirl and stuff like that. If they'd played more on that beginning thing where like his madness is corruptive, or it's like it like, is it infectious? Like I think that would have been more interesting.
If it was actually infectious, like an actual anomalous ability.
Yeah.
If that's just basically saying like, for the same way that people fall for serial killers, like the same sort of deal. It's not nothing that's supernatural, because that's what I assumed. It's not actually supernatural, but if it is, fine. But regardless, Nina herself, I didn't find her likable. She's like she's being bullied and all that, but she doesn't really do anything about it. Like in regards to what a kid would actually do. You're 11 years old. You're being bullied. And you pull out a knife. Okay, you're edgelord, whatever. But I feel like there should be adults in this, especially with how young these kids are. They're children.
Yeah.
It's one thing if they're all teenagers and they're like rejecting the adults and all that because they're in their rebellious youth phase, but they're children.
Yeah, they're not like just like this is Nina, based on this story, based on the original Nina the Killer story that we just read. Nina the Killer is not even a teen, she's a tween. She's a preteen killer.
Yeah.
Which is so weird and it's so like, and I don't understand why all the fan art. Like there's so much art of
Link the Killer.
Yeah.
You put the Killer after any OC and people will draw it.
I guess, yeah. And also like that
if I
also
call myself Gamer the Killer, I will get fan art.
Hey, anybody listening to this who's an artist and wants to do fan art of Gamer the Killer.
Oh god. What have I done?
You are so going to get some fan art.
Anyways, back to this and off of me. I don't get Nina's motives though, because
Yeah.
like she was the whole time she's fighting to defend her brother, and then she kills him.
Yeah, but like I thought
Like-
it would make more sense if like she had taken him hostage and just like now he's just a tag along with her shenanigans. But no, she kills him.
Granted, in the original Jeff the Killer story, didn't he also kill Lou?
It's left honestly ambiguous if he killed him or not, because he just says go to sleep and then it gets away.
But that could have meant literally just go back to bed. I'll see you in the morning.
Yeah, and go kind of leaning back to what we had last episode, like that's the him not killing like Lou gave us like why there was like